Welcome to What Worked Teachers, where our mission is to help schools find out what worked. When you look at the educational research landscape, there's some excellent resources out there, such as the Education Endowment Foundation Teaching and Learning Toolkit. This shows you, on average, what the research evidence says will potentially work. However, one question we get when we speak to schools is, will this work in the context of my school? In 2020, we started What Would Education to help teachers to robustly test what works and what does not work for pupils in their schools. How did we do this? Well, we used something called a micro RCT. So an RCT is a randomized controlled trial. And organisations like the Education Endowment Foundation have been using these for about 15 years now to test on large scale how things work. But the problem we have with large scale randomized controlled trials is that it often takes a long time to set these up and to deliver. So the results of these can take 2 to 3 years to be published. And as a teacher, teachers often want to know, will this work in the year that they're using it? So rather than look at a large-scale randomized controlled trial, we work with micro-randomized controlled trials. So how this works is we do two types. The first one is individual randomization, where you identify a group of target learners. You then complete a pre-test. And then the What Worked Teachers platform then randomly allocates these into an intervention and comparator group. The intervention uses this for the duration of the trial. The comparison group continues as normal. And then you complete the post-assessment task. The What Worked Teachers platform then generates an impact report to tell the teacher straight away how this has worked in their school. Because these are small and only last generally between 4 to 6 weeks, then if this shows promise, the comparison group can then access this after this. One question we get asked is it ethical to withhold an intervention from a control group of students? Well, the first thing we do is we use a waitlist. So the pupils in the control group have access to the intervention after the post-test has been completed. So you're only withholding this intervention for a short space of time to see if it shows promise in your school. We use typical practice. The interventions and strategies we evaluate at What Would Education are typically what pupils are already undertaking in teaching and learning activities and participating in schools. And finally, anonymised data. On the What Worked Teachers platform, no pupil data is submitted. It's all fully anonymised, and therefore head teacher consent to participate is sufficient. So the What Worked Teachers platform. This is designed to help educators set up, implement, and test interventions in your school. We've been working on developing this model for the last 4 years, and the first few years we struggled with teachers to basically complete the micro RCTs. And this was because the biggest barrier we found was time. So over the last few years, we've worked with schools to develop a system that allows teachers to set micro RCTs up roughly in about half an hour, and the maximum to an hour. And the way we do this is we have 3 short videos to help you understand how to use the platform, the research evidence underpinning the intervention, and how this is implemented in your school. You then download a research protocol, which includes the key elements of the research. This is also great for your CEPD, or also if any external bodies are coming into your school and ask, what are you researching? You also have a resource folder that includes any additional resources to deliver that intervention. And then we've built a trial wizard which automates the whole process from setting up the intervention, inputting the data, and then provides an instant impact report. So let's have a quick look at how this platform works. So the first thing you have to do is to sign into the What Worked Teachers platform. If you follow the checklist, it guides you through step by step, and then you have to add a funder code. If you sign up without the funder code, you'll have a blank screen because there'll be no trials there. So when you put your funder code in, it will link you to the evidence base that's generating the evidence. And then once you've done that, you select the trial. This is just an example. And then you sign up. And then from there, you can see the 3 short videos. So the videos are designed to be about 5-6 minutes each. So the first one goes through the welcome, then your intervention, and then the implementation. The next thing you do is download your research protocol. And this will tell you the duration of the trial. And then you download your resource folder, which includes the anonymized tracking spreadsheet. Next, put in your start and end date, and then your sample. So how many students are you working with? In this example, I've put 10, but it could be up to 30. Next, you do your pretest, and then once you have completed your pretest, you put the scores into the What Worked Teachers platform. So you'll see the anonymized student ID is linked to a tracking spreadsheet that you have in the resource folder. So this allows you to link to student names in your class without us knowing which ones they are. And then because it's anonymized, we do ask schools if you can highlight if they're free school meal, and then you randomize. At this point, it is important that you then record the allocation into your tracking spreadsheet. And then the next thing you do is you just run that trial. You do nothing else on the platform until you've completed your post test. And then when you complete your post test, you put your scores in again. If you were to put in 99 and the test is out of 20, it will say your score's too high. So we do have some simple basic data checks in. And then the next thing we ask you to do is to complete a process evaluation survey. So this just allows us to understand any barriers you've had to potentially delivering that intervention, also what the control group are using. Next, you click Analyze, and then the system generates an impact report for how this has worked in your classroom. So when you get the impact report, you'll see that the main outcome measure is percentage change, but you'll also have a technical appendix with the effect size, and then the data that you've inputted into the platform. And the reason why we do this at What Worked Education is to build a cumulative evidence base. So when you have one micro RCT, it just shows how it's worked in one school. But when you start to have replications from other classes and other schools, the data aggregates together. So this is an example from some of the pilots that we run in the northeast of England for a simple year 1 number fluency intervention. And you can see from there that you have schools where it's working and then some schools where it doesn't. But the overall effect size, cumulative effect, is positive in a positive direction. So quickly moving on to data quality. Our mission is to create a teacher-led evidence base that professionals can use to help inform decisions they make about teaching and learning in their school. Therefore, the evidence is only as good as the data that teachers input. So please ensure that you follow the random assignment and then that the data you enter is valid. As fellow teachers replicate your evaluation, we aggregate the data to create a cumulative evidence base. Together we can build something special in education and help improve teaching and learning based on evidence-informed decisions. So the next steps is to move on to the intervention video.